Shalom Aleichem. If you have a Siddur at home, it's on page number 5. The Shalom Aleichem, welcoming a sense of peace, giving us the sense that you and I have the authority to welcome angels within our community. We must be spiritually powerful to welcome angels into our own community, our own home. Page 5. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mi melech, malachei amlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchoni l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mi melech, malachei hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon, mi melech, malachei hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Turning to page number 10, Yedid Nefesh. The first stanza, Yedid Nefesh, is a poem, it's a song, and the tone and the message is that each one of us has a soul. And the soul in some way represents God's touch within each one of us. Yedid Nefesh, Avarachamon, Mishach Avdach, El Ritzonach, Yarotz Avdach, Kemo Ayal, Yishtachave, Mohadarach, Kiyerav Lo, Yedidutach, Minofet Tzuf, V'chol Ta'am, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai Dai Dai, Yadadai Dai 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 Dai. L'chuneranana on page number 11. L'chuneranana l'Adonai, nari alitzur yishenu, nikad mafana b'torah, bismiro nari alo, nikad mafana b'torah, bismiro nari alo, ki el gadol Adonai, umelech gadol al kol Elohim, asher biyado mekerei aretz, v'toafot harim lo, asher biyado mekerei aretz, v'toafot harim lo. On the English, let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Great is Adonai, a greater sovereign than all other deities. God's hands formed the earth's deep. Mountain crests, too, are God's work. The sea is God's, for God made it. Dry land was fashioned by God's hands. Come then, let us bow and kneel. Let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai, who formed us. And if you were to glance quickly at page 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 and 17, you would see time and again the references to heaven and earth. The world itself is singing to God. The world becomes a participant in the creation of all that we have. And that's why I've chosen this song here. It's on the song sheet. It's Build Her Up. This is by Rabbi Robbie Sherwin, and it's speaking of a mountain, but the association with the mountain in this song is the mountain upon which the city of Jerusalem is built. Build her up.
Joshua blasted the walls and down they go. Build her up. We marched straight into Jericho. Build her up. We're gonna build her up. Build her up. Build her up. We're gonna build her up. Build her up. Build her up. Deborah led the charge and the battle was won. Build her up. Building Jerusalem for everyone. Build her up. Gates of gold and hills of fire. Build her up. Resounding with drum and David's lyre. Build her up. We're gonna build her up. Build her up. Build her up. We're gonna build her up. Build her up. Build her up. Gather us all in strength, we pray. Together we can build a better way. Hope and peace for all to see. Jerusalem in harmony. And it's all up to you and me.
Build her up. And on page 17, a psalm. Sing to Adonai a new song, for Adonai has wrought wonders. God's right hand and holy arm have brought deliverance. Adonai declared deliverance. As nations looked on, God's righteousness was revealed. God dealt faithfully and kindly with the house of Israel. The very ends of the earth saw our God's saving power. Call out to Adonai, all the earth. Break out in joyful singing. Sing to Adonai to the music of the lyre. Lyre and voices making music together with horns and shofar cries. Trumpet the presence of the sovereign Adonai. Let the sea and all that is in it roar. The earth and all who inhabit it thunder. Let rivers clap hands while mountains sing harmony. Greeting Adonai, who comes to judge the earth, judging the world with justice and the nations with truth. The theme again, the world itself, and singing, and justice, and help, and protection. And that's why we have this next piece entitled, It's in You. Phrase El Na Rafanala is in that song. El Na Rafanala, oh God, heal her, please. But poetically, I'm going to say, remember that the Hebrew word soul, neshama, is the feminine. Strengthen the soul. Strengthen the spirit. Reach into each and every one of us, oh God, and sustain us in times of challenge, of concern, of fear, because it's within each and every one of us a power, a strength like nothing else in the universe. That's the soul. And our souls now call out beyond our mouths, through our lips, to Shabbat itself. That's why L'Charudi is right here. because our souls are calling out, bringing Shabbat into our shared space. L'charodi. We're on page 23, the first two stanzas, page 25, the last two stanzas. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmiyanu el hamyuchad Adonai echad u'shemo echad l'shem ol tiferet v'litilo. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lekrat Shabbat l'chovenelcha ki makor habracha merosh mikedem Nesucha so maaseh b'machshavat chila. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Yamin osmal tifrotzi v'et Adonai ta'aritzi al yarish ben partzi v'nesmecha v'nagila. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha u'v'tzahala toch emunei am segula boi chala Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lechadodi lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela. Remaining standing on page 28, the last two stanzas of this psalm, which is the Psalm of Shabbat, but we also continue on to page 29, and I'll explain why in just a moment. The last two stanzas of this psalm for Shabbat, again, describing each and every one of us as being a righteous person. The psalm takes for granted that you and I are righteous. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards. In old age they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no flaw, which means that we are essential to the gardens that are within God's world. And now turn to page 29, and this little psalm, Psalm 93, is just a small piece. It's an independent psalm, but sometimes it's associated with the Psalm for Shabbat because it's nearly attached. So remember that we are essential to the flourishing of God's gardens. Adonai is sovereign, robed in splendor, girded in strength. The earth stands firm, not to be dislodged. From earliest time you were enthroned, you are eternal. The rivers rise up, Adonai. The rivers raise up their roar. The rivers raise up their waves. Above the roar of the vast sea and the majestic breakers of the ocean, Adonai stands supreme in the heavens. In your house, beautiful in its holiness, your testimonies endure, Adonai, for all time. The rivers and the oceans and the garden are all calling out. In your house, well, according to the previous psalm, we are in God's house, which means that in this psalm, we're also in God's house. So by our behavior, we are in God's house, and we're making a difference to the world itself. Borchu is on 39b. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam voed. And we are seated. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space. You completed your work of creation on the seventh day, calling this day from one evening to the next the holy Shabbat, and gave this day of rest and all its holiness to your people Israel. Creator of day and night, rolling light before darkness and darkness from light, making day pass and bringing on the evening, distinguishing day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. El chai b'kayam, tamidim lo chalen olam voed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Page 40, the left-hand margin, the lower stanza. When we act with love, Franz Rosenzweig remarks, the neighbor represents all the world and thus distorts the eye's view. Prayer, however, pleads for enlightenment and thereby, without overlooking the neighbor, sees beyond the neighbor, sees the whole world. We need to see the neighbors in our lives in order to put forth the message of human and love and respect. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. In a moment, page 41, the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, come also on bed. Ve'yahavto et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha V'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, v'lechtecha v'aderech, v'shachbecha v'kumecha, v'keshartam lot al yadecha, v'hayulet totafot b'neinecha, v'oktavtam al mezuzot beitecha, v'visharech. Moment of silence on page number 42. Adonai Elohechem emet. The top of page 44. Umalchuto beratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe u'Miriam u'vnei Yisrael locha anu shira b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam mi chamocha po'elim Adonai mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh norati lot Osei Felem Malchutecha ra'u vanecha Bokea yam lifnei Moshe Ze'eli anu v'yamro Adonai yimloch la'olam bo'ed V'ne'emar ki fadarno et Yaakov Ugalom yad chazal mimenu Baruch ato Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. On page 45, on the English side, the last little red arrow, the conclusion of that stanza. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people of Israel, and over Jerusalem. Ushmor tzeitenu v'oleinu l'chaim u'l'shalom me'ata v'yad olam ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Baruch atah Adonai ha'pores sukat shalom aleinu v'yal kol amo Yisrael v'yal Yerushalayim. The top of page 46. V'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam B'nei u'ben b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam oti le'olam oti le'olam V'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz v'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash Shabbat vayinafash v'shamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. We just concluded the Mishamru. Mishamru is a directive to all of us. To make a difference in the world today. Prior to the Mishamru was the Haparei Sukkot Shalom. It's a prayer calling out for God to spread a sense of peace over the entire world. So I would put these two prayers together, the Haparei Sukkot, spreading peace, and Mishamru, we all have a responsibility to make a difference in our world as merged elements, which means it's up to all of us to contribute to bringing peace into our world, beginning with the very next person. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבו, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבו מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיו. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעולמו ואמרו amen. The traditional text, the Amidah, for which we rise, pages 47 through 52. We rise, pages 47 through 52, or at this time, we might offer our own silent, private meditation interwoven with this prayer. A few moments of silence. page 54. Yitkanal v'yitkadosh shemei Rabbo v'chlimeru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbo mevorach olam li'olmei olmayo yitborach yitborach v'yishtabach v'yitparaseh v'yirara v'yirara shemei kudesha b'rechu le'elam min chol berchata v'shirata tishbechata v'nechamata tam Rabbo mevimeru amen. Titkabel tzodom don d'chayis v'kadam Amen. Yesh l'fimeru. Amen. O session movi yaseh shalom l'fimeru. Amen. On Tuesday, we learned that the 51st death due to shooting happened here in Mobile. And my friend, Pastor Lou, with whom I've become very well acquainted, reached out to me and said, we've got to do something. And he said, we need to get a lot of clergy of all different denominations together and just take a stand. And so I contacted some clergy, he contacted another clergy, and it was a person, you contact you, you contact you, contact you. And yesterday, we had about 30 people standing in a circle outside the city-county complex. And his direction was this: each one of you pray individually for just a minute or two, and then find two people whom you do not know and pray with them for just a minute or two. And so that's what we did. And there were a few people who were literally waving their hands, and they were in prayer, and there were some people who were standing there, and they were, I suppose, whispering, and I thought, well, if I had not already davened mincha, I'd be davening mincha right now, because that's what Jews do in late afternoon before sundown. So I made up a prayer. And then after a few minutes, each one of us gathered together and met two new people, introduced ourselves, and then we shared a little bit of prayer with this group of three, this group of three, this group of three, and there were about 10 or 12 groups of three. And then we were all going to come together and speak in just a minute, and it happened that one of the pastors had happened to walk into the building a bit earlier and found a family of 5 people, and they were there, and I don't know exactly why, but because a number of months ago, one of them lost a child to a shooting, and the family therefore was at the court. And the family came out and joined our circle. And to me, there was a sense of electricity, because these clergy had been standing here for a few minutes, but then this family that had lost a child brought itself into our circle to share its pain. And we were there to demonstrate that we were in suffering as well, because we all breathe the same air. And when one person and his life is snuffed out, that affects the air of everyone. And then after we were standing there for a few moments with this family, then the lead pastor went up to a Presbyterian woman and asked her to make a little talk. He said, "Speak life." I had never heard that term. Speak life. So I turned to an African American next to me and I asked, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Talk about what's on your heart, but make it a message. Speak life." And so this woman spoke about love and hope. And then another gentleman was asked to speak. And then the pastor asked me to speak. I never heard that. Speak life. But I spoke about the central element of Torah in our prayer, that members of the synagogue step forward on the pulpit and they take turns, up to 7 people representing the days of the week. And each person takes hold of the Torah, the scripture. It says, "V'chayei olam nata b'tochenu," which I translated, which means each one calls out that the life of the universe is breathed in and maintained within all of us. The life of the universe is shared with one, shared with all. And we have to do everything we can to appreciate what that means to have the life of the universe within us. And that's what we're in danger of losing when a life is taken so quickly, so tragically, so painfully. So I spoke life. And it's been in my head because of something in this week's Torah reading, but not something that people normally talk about, but something at the very beginning of the Torah reading. Because in the middle and the end of the Torah reading, we talk about the reunion, the reunification of Joseph and his brothers. Joseph is now the viceroy. The brothers have come down from Canaan to Egypt. There's a famine. He brings them in. He says, don't worry. It's all taken care of. It's reconciled. I'm not worried about you. God made this happen. I'm here to feed you and sustain you. And ostensibly, it's one big happy family. But we're leaving out one very small element at the very beginning of that experience when Joseph's brothers sell him as a slave because they can't stand him anymore. He's a pain in the neck. He's got this special coat of many colors or whatever it is. And he's also interpreting these dreams. And the phrase that leads to Joseph's being sold away and lost is, they couldn't even speak shalom to each other. They couldn't even, it might be quote marks, we're not sure. They couldn't even say the word shalom to the other. Imagine not being able to say shalom to somebody in your family. Imagine not being able to say shalom to somebody who's walking along the path leading up to your path where you're standing, not even being able to literally utter the word shalom out of your mouth. What must it be in terms of those relationships which are that broken that one person cannot even say shalom to somebody else, let alone a family member, a friend, a relative? And the Hebrew says, lo yachlo dabro shalom, they couldn't even say shalom. And that's what flashed through my mind yesterday when I was asked to speak life. What a wickedness it would be in our world when we can't even say shalom. What a wickedness it would be when we can't even speak to the life, the importance of life between each and every one of us, every single one of us. That's what we need to learn from this week's Torah reading. It's not enough that there was a reunion between Joseph and his brothers and all those other family members. But we also have to say, when they couldn't even say shalom to each other, it's as if one more child had been killed. And we can't stand for that any longer. At some point this weekend, there are similar messages being shared with two Presbyterian churches, an Episcopalian church, this synagogue, and a number of other African American churches throughout Mobile. A similar message of the importance of speaking life, tending life, appreciating the chaye olam, the life of the universe planted and guarded and entrusted to all of us. That's the message that we need to share. Not the message at the beginning of this passage in the Torah, but a passage of all of us walking together and speaking together, speaking life. May we so live. We rise for the Aleinu on page number 56. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asana kugoyeh ha'aratzot, velo samanu kimishpechot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim, modim lifnei melech malchei hamlochim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yosei haaretz u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim imal u'shchinatu zo v'govei meromim hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu evezulato k'katu b'torato v'yodat hayom v'ashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mimal v'al haaretz mitachat ein od. Kagatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. In a moment, the Mourner's Kaddish, found in our Siddur on page number 58, we remember with great love Anna Duberman, Cyril Rich, Florence Kaslov, Sam Berger, Lee Kleinerman, Irving Kahn, Marion Michelle, Rebecca Hoffman, Esther Weinberg, David Saul Bernstein, Sonia Sedlin, Frida Chasen Gelberman, John Roberts, Ida Cohen, Charles W. Grodsky, Gus Grodsky, Meyer Rips, Fanny Linick, Janice Olinsky, Max Plotka, Rosalie Weed, Edith Levy, Gussie Cam, Leo Levinson, Rudolph Jacoby, Lillian Bishko, Linda Haskins, Bernie Malkov, Paul Buckstein. Are there any other names to mention this evening? Perhaps you at home have a name to share at this moment in your own homes. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba. Amen. Be'olma divara chirute v'yamlich malchute v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol be'Yisrael ba'agala v'izman kariv v'meru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivarach La'olam, Olalmei, Olmaya, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh, V'yithadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei, Dekudisha, B'rechu, La'ela, Min Kol, Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbechata, V'nechamata, Da'amiran Ba'olma, V'meru. Amen. Yehei, Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'chayim, Oleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'meru. Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Oleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'meru. Amen. May all who are suffering grief know that they are loved and kept in our hearts in prayer. Reminder, of course, tomorrow morning Minyan at 10, and Zoom Havdalah tomorrow evening, Monday Tanakh study, and Tuesday Adult Hebrew on Zoom, and Tuesday Spirit on Zoom. And Thursday is our monthly book club. It's the Ravine. If you have any questions, please contact me. We'd love to have you join in for the book discussion, which is also on Zoom. We'll conclude with the song on the song sheets, Tfilat HaDerech. It's the Hebrew term for a prayer for peace as we go out into the world, as we continue on our way, a prayer for peace. And then after that, we're invited to, perhaps at home, you have wine and bread prepared, and join us for a Kiddush and Hamotzi. Tfilat HaDerech.
May we be blessed as we go on our way. May we be guided in peace. May we be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. May we be sheltered by the wings of peace. May we be kept in safety and in love. May grace and compassion find their way to every soul. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, and you're invited to join us for Kiddush and Hamotzi, perhaps again wine or juice in your homes, a piece of bread for the Hamotzi. Kiddush, if you have a Seder at home, is on page number 55. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam borei peri hagofen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher kitshana b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yavo v'ratzon inchilanu zikaron l'maseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzroyim kivanu b'charta v'yotanu kidashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodshecha b'yahava v'ratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai b'kadesh ha-Shabbat. And you may remember that before making motzi, it's tradition to wash the hands. It's called Netilat Yadayim, and then we'll do hamotzi together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivonav v'tzivonav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shkoyach, Michael. Unfortunately, those on camera can't hear people singing in the back of the room. But we hope that you come back to Shul soon. May you be blessed. May you know that you're loved and appreciated. We care for you deeply. We want the best for you. Join us tomorrow for services, tomorrow evening for Zoom, Abdullah. And hopefully at some point you'll feel comfortable joining us again, vaccinated and masked in the room. We are socially distant, so it's a safe place, and we want you to come back. Lead road until we see each other again, maybe soon. Good Shabbos.